Welcome into Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports. On today's show, we're going to be discussing some NFL news that affects the Jacksonville Jaguars that's been circulating around the NFL Combine as of late and how it affects Jacksonville directly. I am your host, Cullen Brown. Welcome into Jags Now, like I mentioned, and let's get right into it. Starting off with some Maxx Crosby trade buzz. And look, the Jaguars, I would say, in terms of teams that could trade for Maxx Crosby, it's more or less likely than they will trade for him, but still wanted to bring up this clip from GM John Spytek, who talked about Maxx Crosby, his thoughts on Crosby and the Raiders coming up in 2026, and then just give my thoughts from a Jaguars perspective. Without any further ado, let's throw it over to John Spytek.
I am. Maxx is an elite player, and I've been very upfront from the start when I got here that, you know, we're in the business of having really good players on the team, and we need a lot more of them. And, you know, it's hard to build a great team without elite players.
What has been your communication like with Crosby the last month or so?
Maxx and I have a great relationship. He's in the building every day, getting healthy right now. We talk on the phone, we text. So I have a great relationship with Maxx.
Now, in retrospect, I wouldn't expect John Spytek to say really anything else there. I mean, he's going to want to say that the best player arguably on his team, I don't think it's really an argument, Maxx Crosby, you want him to be a Raider next year. And I just get this overwhelming sense, though, that Crosby is going to get traded and that he's going to get traded soon, because a lot of these teams, when it comes to the free agent edge clashes, I mean, there's guys like Khalil Mack, Trey Hendrickson, Odafe Owe, Jalen Phillips, among many others. So if teams are going to trade for Maxx Crosby, it's going to happen, I think, soon, and sooner rather than later. But that brings us to the Jaguars' point of this. And look, Crosby would be somebody that I love. Josh Hines-Allen as much as the next guy. Trayvon Walker, I think, is a really good player for the Jacksonville Jaguars in terms of an edge rusher. Maxx Crosby would change this defense tenfold. Now, going all in for Maxx Crosby because of the Jaguars' cap situation move would truly be an all-in type of endeavor, in my opinion. And it would be worth it if you think that the Jaguars are a piece or two away from going in and, you know, potentially competing for a Super Bowl title. Again, they lost that kind of narrow battle in the wildcard round against the Buffalo Bills, and I don't think this team is far away from potentially competing for a Super Bowl title. I think they'll be right in the mix, depending on the moves that they make this offseason, but more specifically on the defensive line. Josh Hines-Allen, I think he is untouchable no matter what. He's going to stay a Jacksonville Jaguar. Trayvon Walker, that could be somebody that, you know, if you're Vegas, would a potential, you know, swinging him in for Maxx Crosby tip the scales in Jacksonville's favor, potentially, because Walker would be more on Las Vegas' timeline as they are expected to draft Fernando Mendoza, and then you're really cooking with gas. If you add another defensive tackle in the draft, per se, let's say you use your 56th overall pick, if it's not included in that Maxx Crosby trade, to add another defensive tackle, this becomes one of the best fronts in the league. So I think Maxx Crosby will get traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not so sure. If I had to rate it on a scale, I definitely say it's less than 10 to 20% that he ends up getting traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and might honestly be less, but maybe just the optimistic, hey, look, the fact that he could get traded maybe boosts it up a little bit, but I want to hear from you guys. Would you trade for Maxx Crosby? Again, if the price is right, I'm all for it, but it would be one of those moves where Jaguars would have to make a lot of, you know, financially cap compliant moves in order just to, you know, make the Maxx Crosby trade work. But you guys just let me know down in the comment section below. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Would you trade for Maxx Crosby? All right, now moving on to the second part, and a fellow AFC South team in the Houston Texans. Nick Caserio has confirmed that the Texans are not trading C.J. Stroud. He talked about it at the NFL Combine. Without any further ado, let's hear from the Texans general manager.
He's our quarterback. He ain't going anywhere. We have a lot of confidence, a lot of belief. I mean, I'd say the philosophy that D'Amico and I have, we're going to support our players and do everything we can to kind of help them. And this league's about ups and downs. I mean, nothing's perfect. I mean, there's no team that's undefeated unless I miss something this year. So that's not going to happen. You know, by and large, you're probably going to lose 5 or 6 games. There's going to be some margin on either side. You're going to have some good plays, you're going to have some bad plays, you're going to have some good games, you're going to have some bad games. Okay, how do you bounce back? How do you handle that? So it's just, I mean, this league is a one game at a time proposition, and how you handle it, every situation, ultimately is going to determine your success and your longevity. So no loss. I mean, look, the stock market's been going down for 5 days, so everybody's probably panic selling. So, you know, really what you're doing is you invest in more. So, but anyways, we have a lot of confidence in CJ. We got a lot of confidence in our players, and I'm glad he's our quarterback. Go ahead.
And again, Caserio not expected to say anything outside of that. It would have been bigger news had he said, no, we're looking to pivot off of CJ Stroud and potentially move off of our young or former first-round pick. He later said in an interview that wasn't captured by our guys on the ground there at the NFL Combine Chat Sports. By the way, shout out to all those guys, whether it's Chase Sr., Sam Brown, all the legends that are down there. Y'all been doing a great work all week. But Stroud later said Caserio, later said in an off-camera interview that the idea of trading C.J. Stroud was, quote, moronic. Now, look, I think C.J. Stroud's still arguably one of the top 20, 25 quarterbacks in this league, so it's not like you just get rid of C.J. Stroud no matter what, but to act like trading him is moronic, that's something that I'm having trouble grasping my head around. In terms of, his career stats, as a rookie, he came in, lit the league on fire. 64% completion percentage, 23 touchdowns to 5 picks, over 4,000 yards. He truly looked like a quarterback that could challenge eventually to being one of the top 5 quarterbacks in this game. And since then, again, last year was better in terms of, his 2024 season versus 2025. But then he ended the year with 2 absolute stinkers in the playoff games, not only against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but also in the New England Patriots, in which he threw 4 picks. And there was talk on Twitter if they should bench him for Davis Mills, for crying out loud. C.J. Stroud hasn't been the same since his rookie season. And look, I'm not saying that, the alarm bell should be flying in Houston, that they need to move on from some guy and they have to be looking for different answers. But the idea of trading him is moronic by Caserio, I just think that that might be a little much. And look, I remember C.J. Stroud when he got drafted in terms of, the immediate rise that he had as an NFL rookie. People were already claiming him as, arguably a top 5 quarterback, and the AFC South was going to be run by him and the Houston Texans. Well, lo and behold, Trevor Lawrence gets competent coaching, and look what happens here. And again, C.J. Stroud, I'm not saying he's a bad player by any means, but if you just put the 2 numbers side by side in terms of Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Stroud, I mean, it's not close. Again, C.J. Stroud didn't play. He only played 14 games last season compared to Trevor Lawrence's 17, but 4,000 passing yards, 38 total touchdowns for Trevor. Again, Stroud's never going to be the athletic threat that Trevor Lawrence is, but I'd much rather be in Jacksonville's place than I would be Houston's at this point. Not just because of the quarterback situation, but also just the potential financial commitment that Houston will have to make in terms of, potentially paying Stroud. They're not going to do it. They're going to pick up his 5th-year option and then reevaluate things next year. But if you're Jacksonville, you've already locked in Trevor Lawrence, and now you've found potentially his kingmaker in Liam Cohen, for lack of a better term. And I think Trevor Lawrence, the sky's the limit in terms of what he could be as an NFL quarterback under Cohen's tutelage. So if you're Houston and C.J. Stroud, you're kind of on shaky water at this point. I think Jaguars, when you have that play caller, when you have that quarterback that you can believe in, to me, it's night and day in terms of which one you'd rather be. I'd rather be Jacksonville. And if you don't take my word for it, Nick Caserio also spoke about, where the Jaguars are as an organization.
Yeah, I'd say they got a great program. I mean, what, Liam and James and honestly Tony Baselli have done, kind of building the program. Going into the season, we felt that this was going to be a much improved team, or at least I thought that, and it kind of came to fruition. They're tough, they're physical. They play the right way. They're well coached. They're disciplined. I mean, anytime you win 13 games in this league, it says a lot about where your program is. So, they earned the AFC South this year with their performance. I think our really division overall is going to be probably as competitive as any in the league next year. I mean, you mentioned the Jaguars. I mean, they're defending division champs, made the playoffs. I mean, the Colts, they're a good team. I think Tennessee is going to be much improved, but we got a lot of respect for Jacksonville and their program and what they did, and we understand the challenges that what it's going to take. You're going to have to play a good brand of football on a weekly basis to beat the Jaguars. So a lot of credit to them and a lot of respect for their program.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And look, Nick Caserio was very complimentary of the Jaguars. We actually posted that as a short on the channel. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a beat. But I agree with a lot of what he had to say there, and it's been a tremendous job by the Jaguars to, have the turnaround that they did for 2025 and hopefully beyond. But that's the key, and beyond. The Jaguars have to keep this thing rolling if they want to potentially, run the AFC South for years to come. Houston's not going anywhere. I get that C.J. Stroud's on shaky waters, but you still have D'Amico Ryans, you still have Will Anderson, Derek Stingley, that entire defense. And Houston's a competent organization in terms of how they've ran things these past few years. We'll see what Tennessee ultimately does with Cam Ward now under Robert Saleh, Brian Daboll, this new turnover in Tennessee, and then Indianapolis. They're bringing Daniel Jones back, so How well is that going to go for him? I'm not sure. To me, it's between the Jaguars and the Texans next year for the AFC South. I'll let you guys get down in the comment section, though, and voice your opinion. Who's in the better position as a franchise? Jacksonville Jaguars, type JAC, or the Houston Texans, type HOU. Moving on to the final bit of NFL news related from the NFL Combine, and this was an interesting one that caught my attention. I saw this kind of trending a little bit on Jaguars Twitter. The Vikings are taking calls on NFL veteran Javon Hargrave. Jordan Schultz was the first one with the report saying this. The Vikings have had trade talks with teams regarding two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. Hargrave started 15 games last season and had 3.5 sacks his first year with Minnesota. And, if the Jaguars weren't such in cap hell, for lack of a better term, this could be a move that I would actually consider making if I'm the James Gladstone and the Jags, because Hargrave I still think is a productive player at this point in time. You mentioned Schultz mentioned the 3.5 sacks, also had 4 tackles for loss, 6 quarterback hits. I think as a rotational piece, Hargrave still gives NFL front, a lot to be desired, but not also that, but also just something that can contribute on a rotational basis. That being said, his cap hit next season is $21.4 million. Now, if you trade for him, could the Jaguars potentially give him an extension? Yes, and maybe lower the cap hits. Could they get void years involved? Sure, but I don't think that's best business, and I don't think that the Jaguars should, trade for Javon Hargrave. To me, he's a prime candidate to be cut, and then the Jaguars can maybe get in a bidding war, especially if they decide to move on from a guy like, again, Eric Armstead or Devon Hamilton, where I think Hamilton and Eric Armstead, one of them staying, and I still think they're productive players, but I just at the cap that these guys are at, you got to sit there and be really strategic in how you're going to form this defensive tackle room. If you're Jacksonville, Hargrave, to me, it seems like a long shot that he would be added to this group. But, yeah, you guys let me know down in the comment section below. I think that Hargrave's probably going to be playing somewhere else next season. We'll see ultimately if the Vikings do decide to cut Hargrave. Now, moving on to some Jaguars-related news, as this news kind of came rolling in this morning. The Jaguars are going to be playing 2 games in London for the 2026 NFL season. They were originally scheduled to play 2 games in London for the 2030 NFL season, but due to some recent developments in terms of their Stadium of the Future project, this got moved up to 2026. Demetrius Harvey, who covers the Jags for Jacksonville.com, who does a lot of great work, by the way, should give him a follow, had this to say when talking about the Jaguars. The Jaguars have completed about 15% of the Stadium of the Future project. On schedule and progressing well, per Lamping, the Jaguars president. There are 550 full-time workers working every day, and that will be ramping up. If you don't know what the Stadium of the Future project, by the way, is, the Jaguars are, revamping and retooling and adding to Everbank Stadium, in which there will be limited capacity this upcoming season, as Demetrius Harvey notes here, for 2026. 2027, the Jaguars will be playing outside of Jacksonville for all their games in 2027, and then 2028, they will return to Everbank Stadium, playing home in Jacksonville again. Or at least that's the tentative plan. And Harvey notes this here, saying the capacity for the 2026 NFL season will be roughly around 42,507 games, which includes 1,260 standing room only tickets, and then gives some more details in terms of season ticket renewal info will be shared in the upcoming days. The Jaguars president also noted that, season ticket holders, that if you're in the kind of the upper area where the Jaguars are doing those renovations, they will be contacted personally, and that the Jaguars can, work something out in terms of the season ticket holders. They are also going to be first in line in terms of, renewing their season tickets at different locations if they choose to do so. So just want to get that stadium stuff out of the way in terms of just the news and provide it to you guys, because we got some Combine news. And shout out to our team at Chat Sports, who is at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis covering this. Anthony Hill, Texas linebacker, has met with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, James Gladstone and Liam Cohen are not at the NFL Combine, so I'm not sure exactly when this meeting took place. But without any further ado, let's hear what Anthony Hill had to say about the Jaguars and also linebacker Devin Lloyd.
Oh, I had a great time with them. It was a great interview. I had fun with them, and they're a great organization.
What about a guy like Devin Lloyd who does kind of some of the same things
Yeah.
he did at Texas?
Yep, I watched some of the stuff he did. He had a great year last year, and I was looking forward to play with him if I could.
Anthony Hill, very positive about the Jaguars there, and also had some nice things to say about Devin Lloyd. Now, unfortunately for Anthony Hill, I don't think he would actually be playing with Devin Lloyd as Anthony Hill mentioned, I think he would actually be the Devin Lloyd replacement if Devin Lloyd gets priced out of Jacksonville and is playing elsewhere for 2026 and beyond. But nonetheless, I'd be interested with Anthony Hill. He, to me, is kind of in that, day 2 linebacker range with guys like, Jake Golday, Josiah Trotter, Jacob Rodriguez, a bunch of guys that are still really good contributors. And I think this linebacker class is one of the best in this upcoming draft here in April. So Anthony Hill, I'm going to do some more research on. He's got all the athletic tools to be a great linebacker at the NFL level. Just hasn't quite put it all together. He can be hesitant at time and coverage. Again, just doesn't quite attack in terms of, point of attack as strongly as you would like him. Not to say that he can't do it, but I think he's going to be a productive football player at the next level. It'd be interesting to see if Anthony Campanelli really makes a plead to draft Anthony Hill if the Jaguars ultimately are not able to come to terms with Devin Lloyd. But just wanted to pass that news along to you guys. If you made it to the end of this video, that makes you a real one. And as we've kind of stated in the last video, and as we're going to continue to state here onward, if you made it to the end of the video, it's time for a Duval roll call, baby. If you made it to the end of the video, spam Duval. And let me know down in the comment section what you thought of today's video. And again, if you want to tune in for more Jaguars coverage, make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications. And until next time, Jags fans, we'll see you on the next one.